to Our Own Voice, a partnership in mental health awareness in cooperation with NAMI Wichita and NAMI Kansas and KSUN Community Radio. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We are the largest grassroots advocacy network of people with mental illness and their family members, helping people with mental illness and their family members. With over 800 affiliates across the United States and 15 here in Kansas, we provide awareness, support, education, and advocacy for people affected by mental illness. Our purpose here today is to provide our KSUN listening community a conversation on insights related to what it's like to live and have a mental illness. Our intention is to hope and give hope that our program will change attitudes, assumptions, and stereotypes about people with mental health conditions. My name's Andy Martin, and I'm the Director of Communications and Development for NAMI Kansas. I'm very pleased and proud to be your host today, and I'm a person with mental illness. I am living in recovery for general anxiety and enjoy being around other people that can talk about that and will be supportive of me. I believe that everybody struggles with the stress and challenges of being fully human, but it's okay, and I'm doing okay, and I have many gifts to offer my family and my work and my friends and my community. So it's my pleasure to introduce our guest today, and this is Laura Gatland. Can you say hello, Laura?
Hello.
I'm so glad you're here, Laura. You came all the way from Newton, Kansas. Right?
It's towards the end of the day, too.
Yeah,
I get up in the mornings and shower and start my day and take my medicine and make sure I have what I need for my physical health. And
So, how did you first realize that maybe you had a mental illness?
oh, wow. I think there was a long time when I was symptomatic in creating crises after crises for my mother to rescue me out of.
That had been when you were a girl
I
growing
was
up?
in my early 20s. I was at Meadowlark for 2.5 years. It is not operating anymore.
That would have been an inpatient facility?
That was for the mentally ill, it was called, what's that word?
Residential?
It was residential, but it was also like reforming.
Okay. But there was one particular moment where you had your first kind of break. Is that right?
Right, I was 18. I had come cross country and I was trying to go to Wichita State University. I was getting up in the middle of the night, bicycling down to the track in Wichita on the Cessna Stadium. I was running for 3 and 4 hours a night around and around on that track without proper nutrition or food. I was just listening to Ozzy Osbourne, the Scorpions, AC/DC, and all kinds of stuff. I eventually had a psychotic break because my brain could only take so much of that.
So, do you feel like you accepted that right away, or did you have difficulty understanding what that meant, or what really understanding that you had a mental illness?
I remember coming to in Prairie View. They shot me up with Haldol, and I was out for 3 days. And when I came to, I felt as though it was as if I wasn't even in this century. Like I thought I was back in the 16th century. I felt like, this is just hard to describe. This goes back to memories that I don't think about very much anymore. There are some people at Prairie View that were there when I first came. They have expanded their buildings and built a whole hospital since then.
So the process of you starting to take medication, was that a difficult process for you, or did you find that helpful for you to start treatment that way?
That I always started to respond to the drugs. I really responded, and I made progress, and I worked with my doctors, and I always took my medications, and the honesty was always my best policy for talking with the doctors, and I guess I'm very. Oh, do you want to hear about my past, my present, or?
Let's talk more about we needed a little bit of understanding of
Background,
the past
yeah.
and your actual diagnosis. Can you share what that is with us again?
A schizoaffective thought disorder. It's not schizophrenia. It's not depression or anxiety. I have an anxiety, do have anxiety, do deal with worry and fear, do have a need for more confidence, but I get it. I take my example from people who don't have mental illnesses and how they're able to do things out in the community. They understand the law of the land. They understand things with the logical, rational, intellectual mind that it's very difficult for people with mental illnesses to understand.
So this is great. We're going to take a little pause here, and we'll be right back with more on Our Own Voice and community radio with K-Sun. Thanks. Hello and welcome back to Our Own Voice on K-Sun Community Radio. I'm here with my new friend and guest, Laura Gatlin from Newton, and we're talking about what it's like for her to live and experience mental illness. And we're going to do a little experiment right now. Laura, I'd like you to kind of talk about, here it is, it's afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
What would you normally be doing this time of day?
I have to take a medication called Seroquel at around 4 o'clock-ish. I rest. I take it easy in the evenings. I eat. I sometimes practice my harp. I have been dealing with vertigo for over a month, but it's getting better. I write my appointments on my calendar. I keep my appointments. If I make a commitment, I always follow through unless I absolutely cannot.
So it's real unusual for you to be out with other people
Right
like you
now,
are right now.
it is, yes.
It's kind of stressful for you.
Stress, I guess you could say it's stressful, yeah.
How else would you describe it? What things are you experiencing in your body and in your head?
There's this urgency that I have to get home to safety. It's like there's a fear of not being safe. This time of day when people get off work at around 5 o'clock, crime, drugs, violence, and pornography are things that I haven't really come into direct contact with, but that I'm aware of a lot of attitudes that people have about their lives, their circumstances, their situations, and that I really don't know what all the 911 calls are, but the police, they know the reality of the bad things that happen in this world, medically, physically, all different things that people deal with, the conflicts that people deal with, that need the help of the police and stuff. I have not had direct contact with violence, crime, drugs I've experimented with in the past but never became addicted.
So where does that fit in with your need to be alone and calm and
I
away
have a
from all
need to shut the sensory stimulus out. I have curtains over my windows. I have to have a dark place to lay down and just let my thoughts just relax and my body relax, and I need to take the medication and let it work chemically in my brain. Right now I'm here. I'm not at home with the medication. I've accepted a challenge that Breakthrough said this was a challenge, and I accepted it on the spur of the moment. So I'm going to follow through to the end of this challenge. I'm always thankful for anything that helps me to grow, even if it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, we were talking on break, and you made an interesting comment about how challenging it is for all of us to face our fears and to do difficult things, isn't
yeah.
it? And how what seems like a pretty easy thing for us to be sitting here talking in a radio studio, and that takes a lot of work for you right now, doesn't it?
It does. But But work is always good for us.
Right.
Whatever kind of work there's all different kinds of work that people with mental illnesses can do, but they can't do the things that people that don't have mental illnesses can do, like work for the CDC, like fly across the Atlantic Ocean and go to Africa and Europe and other countries. These kind of things, we have limitations. That Breakthrough tries to take people to the Capitol, Topeka, to talk to the governor, road trips and traveling.
So we've had Breakthrough Club on as a guest on our program and talked a little bit about how they create a daytime experience for people to feel supported and cared for. And I love the way you've talked about how that's been an important part of your daily life.
Everybody has time for everybody else during the day.
And the culture and the environment allows you to choose what you're capable of and what you can handle that day.
There isn't any really painful pressure at the Breakthrough Club. The pressure, it's like there is no pressure on anyone. People
Right.
are allowed to just hang around and do whatever they want to do, say whatever they want to say, as long as they're not disrupting the club in some way or doing something that infringes on other people's rights or rules or what that.
So a typical day for you is to get up and you might spend some time during the day at Breakthrough Club, and then you drive there yourself?
Yeah, I've been driving. I'm a safe driver. I learned how to drive in California, so Kansas driving is nothing for me.
Oh, thank you for that compliment. So, and then you drive home, and then you have some relaxing time in the afternoon and
It
evening.
is hard to develop relationships with other people that don't have mental illnesses. It's hard.
Hold that thought. So that's a great segue to our next segment here. So we're going to take another break here, and thank you for listening to Our Own Voice, and thank you for paying attention to mental illness in our local community of Wichita.
If you would like to learn more about the National Alliance on Mental Illness and how you can get involved in mental health advocacy, please visit our website at NAMI.org.
Can I start?
Hello and welcome back to Our Own Voice, and you're listening to Spirit Song, and we were just talking with our guest Laura Gatlin today about what it's like to have mental illness and then to build, how difficult and challenging it is to build relationships with other people and still care for ourselves at the same time.
You have to remember that you can't read others' minds. You don't know what they're thinking or how they're feeling unless you ask them and they respond to you. It's important to respect others' boundaries, to respect other people's privacy, and not to be invasive of other people's space. Because if you are, you can become very unpopular and people won't want anything to do with you.
And it's hard to have enough courage with ourselves and compassion for ourselves to realize that we can love ourselves and take care of ourselves, and that we can still then...
We can still reach out to others, but their response is up to them. We can't bring a response that we want from others. We have to accept what we get from others.
So how does that relate to your experience with your mental illness? And do you worry about that in terms of interacting with people still? I mean,
I think that intuitive impulses, they help me a lot to just be intuitive and try to feel what the situation entails with interacting with another person. You can make other people angry if they don't understand what you're trying to communicate to them and they get the wrong idea.
So have you had an experience where you've told someone that you have a mental illness and that you're in recovery and that they've responded negatively, or it's been difficult for you?
I don't go around talking about, hey, I have a mental illness. I don't go around telling people. There have been times when my meds were low and I was impulsively speaking to people. the delusional thoughts, and I've shared delusional things with like the EMS and the firemen and the police, and
So it's pretty rare that you would be letting other people know that you're struggling with a disorder.
most of the time other people are struggling with their own problems and have enough to deal with, so that they don't have a lot of time to spend on what's going on with your mental illness. A lot of people think that what's mental illness is not that important. It's something that doesn't have any value or worth, and that it doesn't have a purpose or a reason. But I disagree with that, and I think that there is a purpose for every kind of illness that people have, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, psychological, or spiritual.
So one of the things that we talk a lot about in the National Alliance on Mental Illness is that we envision a world where people with mental illness can live in recovery, resilience, and in wellness. And do you feel like you have a recovery plan in terms of how you're managing yourself and managing your mental illness?
Finding a safe place to dwell, finding a place to live where you can make your efforts to achieve goals, to reach an accomplishment in your life. I think a lot of people with mental illnesses don't have the shelter, the protection they need. They're out there, and places like Breakthrough and Episcopal, people come in off the street that just, they need help, and I'm glad that Breakthrough's gotten more funding so they can help people get disability and get off the streets and have food and shelter and clothing. And this poverty problem in our nation, and the way that money is not fairly circulated, it's something some people care and some people don't care. I've learned that caring is always the better choice.
Right. So what are some of your goals right now in terms of your life these days?
My goal is, I have frozen my YMC membership over the summer. My goal is by the end of the summer to be able to go back to my morning swimming. I would start my day like 5 days a week, swim over an hour a day. I was up at 4:30 in the morning, no meds, no food, but it was a good time to swim, and I miss that. But the vertigo has got to be completely gone before I start to swim again. It just, that kind of exercise for that kind of a dizziness is just, I have achieved some spiritual awakenings and some spiritual goals that when you put aside exercise, sometimes you work more on your mental condition. So I've been reading and just trying to.
It's a different form of discipline. It's not the discipline. It's a different form of discipline in terms of physical exercise. It's exercising your brain and intention to learn. So we're talking about what it's like to live with mental illness in Wichita, Kansas, and we're going to come back in a few minutes after our final break and talk about some of the resources that are available in terms of NAMI Wichita, and continue our own voice. Hello and welcome back to our final segment of Our Own Voice. This is a partnership on mental health awareness in cooperation with NAMI Wichita, NAMI Kansas, and your KSUN Community Radio. I want to give a special shout out to our technical production team, David Peterson, our executive producer, and David Larson, our technical producer. It's so great to have Davids to help you out. And I'm pleased that David Peterson is here in the studio with us today.
Hello, Andy.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing super fantastic, Oracle.
Oh, okay. This is a great day. So I'm glad that you have your own voice to talk to us a little bit about NAMI Wichita. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and you bring an important voice to the table in terms of not a person with mental illness, but as a family member, right?
That is correct.
So if there's one thing you'd want people to hear about your experience with NAMI, what would you want people to hear as they think about people living with mental illness?
Of all the different categories that NAMI covers, probably in my mind, education, knowing what people with mental illness are going through is by far a leader in my mind. But of course, advocacy and destigmatizing mental illness is also very important. But the more you know what is going on in your loved one's life, the more you're able to cope with it and make some positive changes.
So talk to us a little bit about the NAMI Wichita affiliate here. We have it's its own not-for-profit organization and has its own board, and then you guys have support groups and educational programs. Talk to us a little bit about if people wanted to get more involved with NAMI Wichita, what would that look like?
Well, we are the largest affiliate in Kansas.
Yes.
And we have a good group of people that get involved and come to our affiliate meetings, which we have every first of the month on Tuesday, every first Tuesday of the month. And that meeting is very informational. We always normally have a guest speaker, not always, but we are open to the general public, and we'd love to have them. We have that meeting, and then we have the third Tuesday of every month, which is Ask a Doctor, and it's followed by recovery support groups. And we have that for both those that have a mental illness and those that are family members that have someone with a mental illness. And both of these programs are right downtown at the First Presbyterian Church, 525 North Broadway. And you can come in off the market side. There's a big canopy to walk under, and we would love to have you. It's again, you do not have to be a member.
It's one of the things about NAMI that's so easily forgotten, that everything we do is free of charge. There's no cost to our support groups and our educational activities.
That is correct. And we have educational activities. They normally are in the fall and the spring. Some go into the winter. We normally don't do them in the summertime. But we have what we call family to family classes. And it's a class for family members and friends of individuals with a mental illness. And that's what I've participated in a few times and have become a teacher in. And it's, again, very enlightening for people to get involved with this and to understand what their loved one's going through. We have also peer-to-peer, and these classes are for those with a mental illness and only those with mental illness.
So one of the things, just to kind of help kind of do the NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness lingo, when we talk about a peer, we're talking about a peer leader, and that's someone that has a mental illness and is in recovery, working to recover with that mental illness.
That is correct.
As opposed to a family member, a friend, or an ally. Yeah. And all of our classes and support groups are led by people that have lived experience. So if you're in a peer-to-peer class, it's going to be taught by somebody that has lived experience with mental illness, or family to family. It's going to be taught by a family member who's had a family person that's dealing with mental illness.
That's very precise.
You want to tell real quickly about the Basics support group?
The Basics is for a class of parents and primary caregivers of children and adolescents with symptoms of diagnosis of mental illness.
And we also have a life support group here in Wichita on the second and fourth Mondays at West Heights United Methodist Church, right?
That is correct.
And then, of course, we have our NAMI on campus at Wichita State University. Go Shockers. And I just want to thank you publicly, David, and all of the volunteers at NAMI Wichita for what you're doing to help our cause. I want to thank KSUN Community Radio for their opportunity to give our voice and share our voice with our community. I'd like to thank all of our guests that have been with us today. And I want to just invite all of you that are listening today to realize that we all have a voice that we can use, and we can use that voice to help other people and encourage and support and educate. And remember that you're not alone. Thanks.
Cool.